India's oldest toy shop is arguably a tribute to the potential of Sino-Indian trade ties. Nearly 60% of what's on the shelves here comes from China, but change is on the way. Last September, the government set new quality standards for all imported toys. The owner of the shop, Satish Sundra, is worried his next shipment may not comply, plus he'll also have to cover the cost of the inspections.
Shipments come in, it will go up by 5 to 6%. Please, no, I said it correctly. It will go up by approximately about 10%.
The new rules don't target any specific country, but Satish believes they were aimed at choking China's hold on the Indian market as parts of efforts to address the trade imbalance between the two countries. It's estimated Chinese toys account for about 3/4 of India's $750 million toy industry. India has been pushing China for greater access to its markets for a while now in the hopes of reducing its $52 billion trade deficit with Beijing. But it's an imbalance the Chinese have been reluctant to address until now, apparently. As China's trade dispute with the US has deepened, Beijing's eyed greater economic cooperation with India.
Facing unsteady and uncertain international situations, the two countries, as the two biggest developing countries and most important emerging markets, share a lot of common interests and concerns.
India's growing middle class is another factor motivating China.
So we're not looking at it today, you look at it in the next decade, next decades, you see. So definitely they would like access to the Indian markets, and they find that in certain areas they get kind of frozen out because of this lack of trust, security issues. So they would definitely like to negotiate their way in.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is scheduled to visit China in June for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Both sides need time to focus on resetting relations, something businessmen like Satish hope will materialize.
Any good relationship with any country is good for business. It's a two-way traffic. If it's good for me, it's good for you. It can't be just one-sided.
And the stakes are also high for Narendra Modi, who needs to demonstrate leadership on foreign policy ahead of next year's general elections. Neha Poonia, TRT World, New Delhi.
Rajiv Biswas is the Asia-Pacific chief economist at research firm IHS Markit in Singapore. He told me earlier it's in both India's and China's interests to work with each other and other emerging economies.
I think there has been good progress last year in the bilateral trade relationship, particularly because Indian exports to China last year grew by 39%. So I think that will be encouraging for Prime Minister Modi, who has been concerned in recent years about the significant trade deficit in China's favor and against India. So this is good news that things are getting better. And of course, in the long term, the Chinese market is a huge market growing very rapidly, so offers a lot of growth opportunities for India. And so I think this summit is primarily focused on improving the bilateral political relationship, but clearly Modi will have a very keen eye on how India can also tap into the Chinese market. Well, China also wants to have good relations with India. India is a key partner in the BRICS relationship. The BRICS grouping of countries has become increasingly important, and China is a sort of de facto leader of the BRICS grouping. They've done a lot of things in the last 5 years to strengthen South-South relationships with many other developing countries. So India is a key partner for China in making that grouping work. So both India and China have a strong interest to make the BRICS process work.
And our editor-at-large, Craig Peters, is still with us in Paris. Craig, do you think that America's threats to impose these punitive trade import sanctions, tariffs rather, on Chinese imports, has that drawn China closer towards India?
Oh, I believe it has, but I also, in the same breath, believe that China wants to draw India closer into its sphere of influence. They want India to get involved in that One Belt, One Road deal, and India really isn't all that interested. And although the trade figures are up and they seem to be smiling at each other, Prime Minister Modi knows better than anyone else that One Belt, One Road is a political deal as well as an economic deal. And at the end of the day, he has to deal with the Chinese, but how far can he really go in doing that while keeping them at the distance he knows he has to keep them at? That's the political calculation.
It's going to be interesting to watch what America does in relation to this if the two sides do get together. And how's it going to affect the rest of Asia? How are other countries in that region likely to react if these two giants do get closer?
Look, as we've said this many times before, if you're in Asia, you have to do business with China. That's just the way it is. You can make good deals with them, you can make bad deals with them. But the one thing no countries want to do is get into that political deal with them. And that's what One Belt, One Road is all about. And India plays a key role here because India, for all its warts and all its problems, it's the world's biggest democracy. And that is real important. And the Chinese would love to get a very strong toehold in that democracy.
It's going to be very interesting to watch indeed. Craig Copetas in Paris, thank you so much.